There was a child who lived on the edges of things. You might have seen them once, standing near the back of the classroom or sitting alone on a bench while other children ran past in blurs of noise and color. They were not lost. They were not broken. They were simply somewhere else, even while being right there. Did you stay silent because you had nothing to say, or because the world was already shouting too loud for you to be heard? If that question stirs something in you, then perhaps you were that child too. A silent childhood is not an empty one. This is something the world gets wrong again and again. People look at the quiet child and assume there is a void where words should be. They see stillness and imagine absence. But the truth is exactly the opposite. The silent child is full to overflowing. They are so full of observations, so packed with tiny details that others walk past without seeing, that words feel too small to carry it all. So they stay quiet, not because they have nothing to say, but because they have too much. The quiet child is like a cup that is already full. Every drop of new experience threatens to spill over. Every conversation, every face, every sound adds to what is already there. Speaking would mean letting something out. And how do you choose which drop to release when they all feel equally important? So you hold it all inside, turning it over, examining it, trying to make sense of a world that gives you far more information than it gives to others. You were the child who noticed when your mother's voice changed at the end of the day. Not the words she said, but the weight beneath them. You heard the tiredness she tried to hide. You felt the tension she carried home from somewhere you were not allowed to follow. You noticed, and you did not say anything, because what was there to say? You were 5 or 6 or 7 years old, and you already understood that some things live in the spaces between words, not in the words themselves. You noticed when your father forced a laugh that did not match his eyes. You saw the way your parents looked at each other across the dinner table, entire conversations happening in glances that no one else seemed to catch. You were a tiny anthropologist studying the tribe you were born into, gathering data that would take years to understand. The quiet child sees the truth that adults think they are hiding. They just do not know what to do with it yet. This is the gift and the burden of the quiet child. You see the layers of things. While other children were focused on the game, you were watching the way light fell across the room. While they argued about whose turn it was, you were noticing the dust floating through a sunbeam, each tiny piece moving in its own private dance. The world was not boring to you. It was overwhelmingly beautiful and strange. Every moment held more than you could possibly process, so you learned to be still. Stillness was how you caught your breath. The adults in your life probably worried about you. They asked why you were so quiet. They wondered if something was wrong. Teachers wrote notes home suggesting you participate more. Relatives at holidays crouched down to your level and asked questions in that slow, careful voice people use when they think something might be broken. Are you okay? Why are you not playing with the other kids? Do you not like the party? You learned to say the things that made them stop asking. I am fine, just tired. I am okay. These phrases became a kind of armor. Not lies exactly, but not the truth either. The truth was too complicated. The truth was that you were not tired, you were full. You were not shy, you were watching. You were not sad, you were somewhere else entirely, building invisible castles in the kingdom of your own mind. These simple answers became a shield you carried everywhere. They were the coins you paid to purchase privacy. Adults seemed satisfied with them, which both relieved you and made you feel more alone. If they accepted such simple answers, did they even want to know the complicated truth? Or were the questions just rituals, sounds made to fill silence rather than genuine attempts to understand. How do you explain that to an adult who wants you to go play tag? The world of the quiet child is rich beyond measure, but it is also lonely in ways that are hard to describe. You could be surrounded by people and still feel alone, not because no one was there, but because no one was there with you, in the place where you actually lived. Your body sat in the classroom or the living room or the back seat of the car, but your mind was wandering through forests that only you could see. You were building stories, asking questions, replaying moments to understand them better. You were doing important work, but to everyone else, you just looked like you were staring out the window. There is a difference between being seen and being known. The quiet child learns this early. People saw you all the time. Your parents, your teachers, the other kids. You were visible. You existed. But being seen is not the same as being known. Being known means someone understands the world behind your eyes. It means someone gets why you went quiet during the birthday party, or why you needed to sit alone after school, or why certain sounds made you want to disappear. Being known is rare. For the quiet child, it can feel almost impossible. So you learn to live in two worlds at once. There was the outer world, where you went through the motions and said the expected things and smiled when smiles were required. And there was the inner world, where everything actually happened. The inner world was where you processed the look your friend gave you at lunch. The inner world was where you wondered why your father seemed sad, even when he was laughing. The inner world was where you kept all the questions that had no answers, turning them over and over like stones smoothed by water. The outer world wanted you to be present, but the inner world was where you truly lived. You developed the ability to appear fully there while being fully elsewhere. Your body could sit in a classroom taking notes while your mind wandered through entirely different landscapes. This was not distraction, it was survival. The inner world was where you retreated when the outer world asked too much of you. Sometimes these two worlds collided. A teacher would call your name and you would surface suddenly, blinking like someone waking from a dream. For a moment, you would not remember where you were. The transition from inside to outside was jarring, like stepping from a warm house into cold air. You learned to make these transitions quickly, to hide the distance you had traveled in your own mind. The quiet child feels a room before they enter it. This is not something you can explain to people who do not experience it. It is not fear exactly, though it can look like fear from the outside. It is more like tuning into a radio station that plays emotions instead of music. You walk toward a doorway and something in you starts receiving signals. Is there tension in there? Is someone angry? Is the energy light or heavy? You gather all this information in seconds without even trying, and then you have to decide whether you have the strength to walk in. This is exhausting. People who do not feel this way cannot understand how tiring it is to process so much. They see you hesitating at the door and think you are scared of people. But you are not scared of people. You are overwhelmed by information. Every face in the room is sending signals. Every voice carries layers of meaning beneath the words. Every shift in someone's posture tells a story. You are reading 1,000 tiny books at once, and nobody understands why you need a moment before you can add your own chapter. The quiet child becomes an expert at the language of energy. You learn to read the room the way other children learn to read books. You could tell when a teacher was having a bad day before they said a single word. You could feel when a friendship was changing, when the invisible threads between two people were starting to fray. You noticed the micro-expressions, the half-hidden sighs, the way someone's eyes would flicker away when they were hiding something. This was not a skill you asked for. It was simply how your mind worked. But this gift came with a shadow. When you see so much, you also feel so much. The sadness of others seeped into you like water, into cloth. The anger of a stranger on the street could follow you home. You absorbed the emotions around you because you could not figure out how to build walls against them. Your sensitivity was a door that you did not know how to close. So you learned to limit your exposure. You learned that being alone was not loneliness, it was medicine. Solitude was the only place where the noise finally stopped. Do you remember the relief of closing your bedroom door? That moment when the world contracted to a space you could control. The sounds of the house faded to a distant hum. The expectations of others could not reach you there. In your room, you did not have to perform fine. You did not have to pretend you were like everyone else. You could finally just be whatever you actually were, even if you did not have words for it yet. Your room was your laboratory. It was where you conducted experiments in being yourself. You could think thoughts that would sound strange if spoken out loud. You could feel feelings without worrying about your face giving you away. You could process all the information you had collected during the day, sorting through it like a prospector looking for gold in a pan full of ordinary sand. Some of your richest hours were spent in that solitude. Reading, daydreaming, creating entire worlds out of nothing but imagination and time. Adults saw a child alone in their room and worried. But you were not lonely. You were finally free. The quiet child often finds friends in unusual places. Books became your companions. Stories took you to worlds where being different was a beginning, not an ending. Characters who were misunderstood became your mirrors. You saw yourself in the ones who watched from the edges, the ones who kept secrets, the ones who felt too much. These fictional friends understood you in ways that real people often did not. They never asked you to explain yourself. They just let you be. Nature was another friend. Trees do not expect conversation. Rivers do not care if you are quiet. The sky has room for all your unspoken thoughts. The quiet child often feels more at home outside than in any room full of people. There is no energy to read in a forest, no hidden meanings in the wind. Nature is exactly what it appears to be, and that simplicity is a rest for a mind that is always searching for layers. Animals understood too. A pet could sit with you in silence and it was not awkward. It was not empty. It was just two living things sharing space without the need for words. The quiet child often forms deep bonds with animals because animals do not need you to perform humanity the way humans do. They accept your presence without requiring an explanation for it. But the world kept asking for more. School wanted you to raise your hand. Family gatherings wanted you to chat with relatives you barely knew. Birthday parties wanted you to be excited and loud and there in a way that used up everything you had. The world kept sending the message that quiet was not enough, that watching was not participating, that if you were not adding noise to the noise, you were somehow failing. This is the central wound of the silent childhood. The slow, repeated message that who you are is not what the world wants. You learned to doubt yourself. You wondered if something was wrong with you. Why could everyone else do this so easily? Why did talking to strangers feel like climbing a mountain when others seemed to skip up the path without effort? The world made you feel like your nature was a mistake, like you had been built wrong and needed to be fixed. Every report card comment that said should participate more was another small cut. Every well-meaning suggestion to come out of your shell was another reminder that your shell was seen as a problem. The world spoke as if your quiet was a cage you were trapped in, when actually it was a home you had built for yourself. They wanted to rescue you from the very place where you felt safest, You began to wonder if you were broken. You compared yourself to the easy talkers, the quick laughers, the children who seemed to bounce through social situations like rubber balls. Their way seemed so effortless. Your way felt like work. Nobody told you that different is not the same as wrong. Nobody explained that the world needs both kinds of people. So you assumed you were the mistake. Some quiet children respond by trying to become loud. They force themselves into the shape the world seems to want. They learn to perform extroversion like an actor playing a role. They raise their hands even when they do not want to. They go to the parties and make the small talk and smile until their faces ache. This can work for a while, but it costs something. It costs the connection to that inner world where they actually live. It costs authenticity. Eventually, the performance becomes exhausting, and they have to choose between who they really are and who the world wants them to be. Other quiet children respond by withdrawing further. If the world does not want their silence, they will give their silence to themselves. They build higher walls. They trust fewer people. They retreat into books and screens in the safety of their own minds. This too has costs. The walls that keep out pain also keep out connection. The solitude that heals can become a prison if it goes on too long. But here is what the quiet child eventually learns, usually after years of struggle and doubt. Their silence was never a flaw. It was a sanctuary. It was the place where depth was born. It was the soil where sensitivity grew into wisdom. The very thing the world tried to fix was the very thing that made them capable of seeing what others could not. This realization does not come easily. It often takes decades. You might be 30 or 40 years old before you finally understand that your childhood silence was not a prison, but a chrysalis. You were not hiding from life. You were transforming. Every quiet hour was adding something to who you were becoming. Every observation was being stored away, building a library of human behavior that would serve you for the rest of your life. The journey from shame to acceptance is long. There may be moments when you still wish you were different, still catch yourself apologizing for needing time alone. But gradually, the understanding settles into your bones. You are not broken. You never were. You were simply made for depth in a world that often only values surface. The adult who was once a silent child carries gifts that took a lifetime to recognize. They notice the colleague who is struggling before anyone else does. They sense the tension in a room and know when to speak and when to stay quiet. They ask the questions that others are afraid to ask because they have spent years watching the spaces where truth hides. They create art that moves people because they remember how it felt to be moved by a sunbeam, by a tone of voice, by the particular way someone looked away. Depth in a shallow world is its own kind of light. We live in an age that rewards noise. Social media celebrates the loudest voices. Success is measured in visibility. Everyone is performing. Everyone is projecting. Everyone is desperate to be seen. In this landscape, the quiet soul stands out simply by standing still. They offer something increasingly rare, the ability to truly pay attention, the willingness to go beneath the surface, the patience to wait for meaning instead of grasping for attention. In a world of hot takes and instant reactions, the quiet person offers something different. They offer considered thought. They offer the perspective that comes from watching before speaking. They offer the depth that only grows in silence. These are not qualities the world knows how to measure, but they are qualities the world desperately needs. The people who truly change. Things are often the ones who spent years watching first. They understood before they acted. They listened before they spoke. Their silence was not absence. It was preparation. The silent childhood was training. Every moment of watching was practice. Every hour of solitude was preparation. You were learning to see in ways that would take others decades to understand, if they ever understood at all. You were developing a relationship with depth that would become your greatest strength. The world called it shyness. The world called it a problem. But it was actually a gift being unwrapped in slow motion. Think about what you noticed as a child. The things you saw that no one else seemed to see. The feelings you had that were too big for your small body. The questions you asked inside your head because you knew there was no one to answer them. All of that noticing, all of that feeling, all of that questioning became the foundation of who you are now. The quiet child grew up, and they brought their silence with them, not as a wound, but as a wisdom. You did not need to be fixed. You needed to be understood. And if the world would not understand you, you learned to understand yourself. You became your own translator, finding words for experiences that language was not built to hold. You became your own protector, setting boundaries that honored your sensitivity instead of apologizing for it. You became your own friend, learning to enjoy your own company because you knew that company was rich with everything you had gathered over the years. The silent childhood shaped you in ways you are still discovering. It gave you empathy that runs deep as bone. It gave you intuition that reads people like poetry. It gave you creativity that draws from wells others do not know exist. It gave you the ability to be alone without being lonely, to find peace in stillness, to hear the quiet voices that get drowned out in all the shouting. So this is for you, the one who lived on the edges, the one who watched instead of played, the one who felt too much and learned to hide it, the one who built invisible castles while the world wondered what was wrong with you. Nothing was wrong with you. You were simply paying attention at a level that others could not see. You were collecting the tiny, beautiful, terrible details of being alive. You were becoming someone who would grow up to notice what the loud world misses. Your silence was never empty. It was full of everything you were too wise to waste on small talk. It was full of observations that others were moving too fast to make. Your stillness was never passive. It was active in ways that happened beneath the surface, like roots growing in the dark. Your difference was never a defect. It was a depth that the shallow world could not measure. The child who stayed silent had everything to say. They just knew that some things are too important to rush. Some things need time to become words. Some things are better held close to the heart, where they can grow into something truly worth sharing. If you were that child, you already know this. You have always known it, even when the world made you doubt. Your silence was a superpower. Your watching was a gift. Your invisible castles were real, and they still stand inside you, waiting to be explored. What did you notice as a child that no one else seemed to see? What details did you collect that still live inside you today? Leave it in the comments below. Let us build a space where the quiet ones can finally speak, in their own time, in their own way, because sometimes the most powerful stories are the ones that were never said out loud until now.